of the past is undeniable. Archaeology has the power to captivate and inspire. And this tiny island, where no corner has been untouched by human hand, has an immensely rich and varied heritage, unique and incomparable. The past belongs to all of us. It defines us as individuals, as societies, and as groups within societies. It influences our lives and brings us a sense of identity. Over recent years, archaeology has become ever more visible in the public eye, and people are taking an active interest. There hasn't always been the support for groups wanting to investigate their local heritage, but for approaching a decade, Nottinghamshire has had a dedicated group of community archaeologists who have been able to provide guidance and expertise. I'm Emily Gillett, I'm one of those archaeologists, and today I'm going to take you on a tour of some of the great things we've been involved with since 2003. We've been involved in projects across Nottinghamshire, helping people from all walks of life to become involved in investigating and protecting their heritage. We began with the first ever systematic archaeological survey of Sherwood Forest Country Park. With the help of the Heritage Lottery Fund and volunteers from Nottinghamshire and beyond, hundreds of archaeological features have been recorded beneath the mighty ancient oaks of Birkelands. These range from small storage pits from when the area was used for army training in the 20th century to an impressive earthwork enclosure that might be the very rare survival of part of a Roman farmstead. Using the volunteer team, we were able to map this enclosure and produce an exact plan of the earthworks along with a three-dimensional image. None of this archaeology had been mapped and recorded before, and an undertaking of this scale would not have been possible without the volunteers and the knowledge they brought with them. Over the years, we've been involved in all sorts of projects, linking not only with local history groups, but whole communities and the general public. We've linked up with professional archaeological units, museums, libraries, universities and partner groups and organisations. We've organised talks, training days, guided walks and family events. We've run the gamut of field work, from small-scale test pitting to full-blown community excavations. We've done extensive walkover surveys, as well as intensive topographic surveys. We've covered all periods, from a Mesolithic open site to a Victorian Japanese garden. Sometimes the field work has involved training members of a community group to carry out the work themselves or with support. On other occasions, the community archaeologists have carried out the field work on behalf of the group. We're flexible and tailor our approach to the needs of the groups we work with. I'm now going to take you on a tour of some of the projects we've been involved with over the past few years. I mentioned previously that we began with the recording of archaeological features in Sherwood Forest. We've done similar surveys in other woodlands too, at Eakring Braille, at Thieves Wood near Mansfield and at Cockload near Ollerton, for organisations like the Forestry Commission, as well as community groups like the Friends of Thinghow. In Cockload, we've been working with the Friends of Sherwood Heath, Cockload and Rotary Woods on the former site and grounds of Cockload House. The house was demolished in the mid-20th century to make way for the spoil heap from the nearby colliery. Although the site has now been reclaimed by Woodland, there are still traces of the gardens and earlier features to be found. Members of the Friends of Group and their families have been using GPS equipment to map the location of these features. Along with earthworks, they have mapped the location of unusual trees or exotic garden plants, as these might be remnants from the gardens. This type of extensive survey is great for locating archaeology in wide areas where not a lot is known. It provides basic information upon which future work can be built. In places where archaeology is known and still exists in the form of earthworks, that is, lumps and bumps in the ground, a more detailed type of survey can be done. And we've done several of these topographic surveys, from small-scale enclosures to entire deserted villages. One such village is West Burton, near Sturtonley Steeple. In 1750, a small village still sat here on the banks of the River Trent, clustering along the main street that led down to the river. But at the end of the 18th century, the course of the river was changed, isolating the village. Residents were forced to move away as rents were put up, and the village was deserted. Today, all that remains above ground are some lumps and bumps in a few fields, although the name of the village is now given to the nearby power station. We mapped the village earthworks using survey equipment. This site is especially unusual in that a map of the village survives from 1750. and we were able to use this map to identify specific plots of land, and we even know where the village pinfold would have stood. We arranged a number of open days where we were able to give visitors guided tours of the site. These days were extremely popular as the site isn't easy to access. We had local schools visiting as well as history groups and the general public. Another project to map a deserted village took place at Willoughby near Norrell. Here the local history group carried out the entire survey themselves with our support and have produced some fantastic results. The group are still trying to unravel the history of the site, but the earthworks survey has allowed a speculative reconstruction to be drawn by Nottinghamshire artist Ray Straw. While we can't be certain of the accuracy of all the details, the deserted village has fired the imaginations of those living in nearby Norrell. At Bothamsall in the heart of Nottinghamshire lie the remains of a small Motte and Bailey castle. These earthworks came to our attention under a project on the castles of Nottinghamshire. This was a slightly different survey, largely because the earthworks were almost completely hidden by gorse bushes and brambles, and we soon began to understand why the local group was so happy to let us do the survey on their behalf. However, cuts and bruises aside, we were able to produce a three-dimensional image of the earthworks, and for the first time in many years the castle emerged, albeit virtually, from under the blanket of gorse. When most people think of archaeology, they immediately think of excavation, and we've certainly done plenty of this. But we feel it's important to make sure that the people we work with understand that excavation is a destructive process, so it's not always appropriate to grab a spade and start digging. That's why a lot of the work that we've done focuses on non-destructive techniques such as survey. There are cases, however, where excavation is the best, or indeed the only way of finding the answers that we want. In Mansfield Woodhouse we carried out a time team style Little Big Dig over the course of several seasons. The village was largely destroyed by a catastrophic fire in 1304. The Mansfield Woodhouse Society were keen to look for evidence of this fire and find out if the village had once been in a different location. So together we appealed to residents to allow a metre square of their gardens to be dug up. A volunteer dig team excavated these test pits across Woodhouse, searching for evidence of fire in association with medieval pottery. This type of back garden archaeology not only produced what was almost certainly the original main street of the village, but one or two unexpected finds. One hole produced a Mesolithic flint scraper, while another produced a tantalising fragment of a stone building. This was a small-scale, piecemeal excavation carried out across several years. In Jacksdale, on the Derbyshire border, we arranged a community excavation that was on a much larger scale. Jacksdale is a small village that began life as a row of cottages to house workers for the local ironworks. These cottages were known as Stone Row and were demolished in the 1960s. It was out of these houses that the village grew, sitting at the heart of an industrial landscape of railways, canals, tramways, collieries, and of course the ironworks. Almost all trace of the former industries have now vanished. A local group, the Portland Path Project, have a vision to use the vestiges of the past to rejuvenate the village, and were keen to see what, if anything, remained below ground of the old Stone Row and the canal wharf and basin. The month-long excavation commenced in some of the worst winter weather for over a decade, but the tough conditions weren't going to stop the eager volunteers from getting stuck in. By the end of the excavation, we'd all but drunk the local coffee shop dry of coffee and had been dragged into a massive snowball fight with the local children. But we'd also managed to uncover an impressive amount of well-preserved archaeology, including part of Stone Row, complete with tiled floors, the canal wharf complete with wooden sleepers in situ, a brick-floored canal building, and a possible outdoor privy. We also know that the clay lining of the canal basin is still holding water, which was great news for the Cromford Canal Society, as they have a dream to reinstate the canal. Jacksdale was the biggest excavation we've undertaken to date, entirely under our own steam, but we've teamed up with professional units on a number of occasions. We've been working with the University of Salford for several years now, at Mons Pool near Collingham, to bring a community phase to the excavations there. This site is owned by Lafarge Aggregates and is due to become a gravel quarry. Several years of excavation have already been undertaken on the site, with more planned. These excavations have revealed occupation on the site from the Mesolithic and perhaps earlier, with the main periods being Bronze Age through to Romano-British. Volunteers have had the opportunity to take part in the excavations and get their hands dirty, and have been able to return to the site in subsequent years.
Hi, I'm Kirsty Parish and we're here on an archaeological site in Mansfield. There's currently evidence for an Iron Age settlement that was here before the Romans extended their empire and it became Romans and a British settlement. I am part of a volunteer group here today that have been here all week. We've had the wonderful opportunity of being part of this dig.
Working in partnership like this ensures that everyone gets the most out of the project. There's one other type of work that we've been involved with over the past few years, and you might not immediately think of it as archaeological. I'm talking about graveyard surveys. To date, we've been involved with graveyard surveys in Haleham, West Burton, Woodborough, Cookney and Bramcote. With these surveys, we work with volunteers to map the graveyard, marking the location of all of the gravestones and memorials. We then record the information and the condition of each stone, taking photographs and drawing sketches. We found that people find this especially engaging because it feels like you're really connecting with your ancestors to make a difference for today. The information we record is useful for local history as well as genealogy and can be used to monitor the condition of the memorials. Something we're discovering is that every churchyard has its own personality and each one contains fascinating insights into the local area. All of our projects are supported by a variety of events, and we offer a host of things like workshops, talks, guided walks and training days. Events have ranged from open days, family activity days, reenactment festivals to children's archaeology clubs. We've worked with country parks, libraries and museums. For example, at Mansfield Woodhouse Library we arranged a mosaic day where locals could drop in and help piece together a reconstruction of part of a mosaic found in the 18th century at a nearby Roman villa. What you've seen here represents only a small portion of everything we've been involved with. To return to a point I made earlier, the past belongs to all of us. Local heritage projects like these can help bridge all manner of divides, social and physical, including the gap that's grown between the professional and the amateur, where the value of the amateur has too often been neglected. These projects represent opportunities for education and for sharing of information and knowledge, and can help reinforce a sense of pride of place. It's our heritage, it's who we are, so let's make the most of it, for now and for the future.